Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some Toronto Raptors news. Riker, the Raptors, they're involved with some news surrounding your team, the New York Knicks, your favorite team and your second favorite team. They're involved in some discussions as seemingly tradition with Raptors top free agents. The Knicks always seem to find their way trying to get their mitts on our players, or not even players. Whether it's Kyle Lowry, they sneaked into the Kawhi Leonard discussions. Obviously, last season it was all about Fred VanVleet, and they're even always after our general manager, Masai Ujiri. Obviously, that's not the rumors we're breaking down today. It's Kyle Lowry, Riker, and obviously there's a divide amongst the fan base about people that want to keep and pay Kyle Lowry on the squad, and then a lot of people that would say, okay, if he's going to command a big contract, let him walk and let's see what happens. But what are your thoughts on the Knicks going after Kyle Lowry?
Well, the Knicks, they want to be win now, right? And their entire roster is going to be gutted after this season. They have basically no one important on long-term contract or guaranteed contract except for Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, their rookie Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, who really hasn't impressed, and Emmanuel Quickly. But everyone else, they're up, they can get re-signed. Maybe they can. Obviously, they've shown in this playoff series against the Hawks, they're having the similar issues that the Raptors are having with Pascal Siakam. And so if your power forward isn't scoring for you and the only guy that was scoring was Derrick Rose, then maybe the solution is to get a little more offense, a little more veteran leadership. And of course, they're looking towards the Raptors and Kyle Lowry because it's been forever in the news, Ben.
Yeah, well, Kyle Lowry has a long history with the New York Knicks, obviously back, what was that, 2013, 2014? I think it was the 2013-2014 season. Masai Ujiri's second year with the squad, I believe, or first season. It was Kyle Lowry. He just got rid of Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay was acquired the season prior. That offseason, Masai Ujiri was cleaning house, got rid of Andrea Bargnani, then sent Rudy Gay out of there immediately. The team wasn't living up to expectations, and then it was expected. It was basically proposed, basically written. The Knicks just needed Dolan's signature to sign off on a Kyle Lowry deal, sending him away for, I believe it was Iman Shumpert. Maybe Hardaway Jr. was a part of that. I'm trying to go off purely memory here, but there was a couple guys, a couple of those wing players. Not a great return for Kyle Lowry, certainly for what he ended up providing for this Toronto Raptors, a championship, multiple all-star appearances, and really becoming the Raptors' GOAT. They were really going to give him up for a future rebuilding trade. And obviously, after being swindled in that Carmelo Anthony trade, James Dolan said, no, I want nothing of Masai Ujiri. And one of the biggest mistakes, certainly in New York Knicks history, is not acquiring Kyle Lowry during that season. And things are come full circle, Riker, and they're trying to redo that mistake with Kyle Lowry at age 35, 36 right now. Obviously, the Raptors are going in a more younger direction, but there's still a lot of people that want to keep Kyle Lowry around. And during the trade deadline, we heard a lot of talk of Brian Windhorst saying that Kyle Lowry is expecting a 2-year, $25 million contract. And do you think the Raptors should re-sign Kyle if a team like the Knicks is going to be willing to pay a veteran that type of money?
25. Are you willing to pay Kyle Lowry $25 million, Ben?
For 2 years, it's tough because the Raptors obviously struggle in acquiring those big name free agents, and Kyle Lowry obviously deserves it for everything he's done for the franchise. But the fact that you have Fred VanVleet, who's not moving to the bench, even with Gary Trent Jr. coming in, right? Fred VanVleet has to be a starter, and we saw Trent really struggle off the bench. He's really a touch and feel guy. He needs that ball in his hands to splash home those shots as we saw at the end of the season. So if it means the stagnation in terms of the development of Trent, and obviously Fred VanVleet not being on this or him being here on this roster, going to be that starting point guard, I don't know if you pay that much for Kyle Lowry, unless he's willing to be the sixth man for this team, the leader off the bench, like Goran Dragic was for the Heat for the past couple of years. I'd love to bring him back in that capacity, but if it's going to be weird with rotations and stuff, then I might hold off on giving him that contract.
Don't compare Kyle Lowry to sixth man Dragic, because all of Heat fandom wants that man out right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredibly disappointed with him and his contract. So that's a tough, we'll shoulder that comparison. But
yeah,
here's the thing.
Lowry's better. Lowry's better. Just so people know, I'm not
He's
comparing
better.
the two.
He's
yeah.
But ultimately, he hasn't, him in the playoffs, Dragic in the playoffs in the last season, neither of the in the bubble. I mean, I guess in the bubble it's tough to compare, but I don't want to get too high on either of them considering their age and the amount that they're getting paid. But I've come to grips with sign and trade doesn't make sense, because no team would trade $20 million when they could just sign him for $20 million, right? Why would they trade away a player just to acquire a guy that they could have signed without trading away anybody? Right. And the only way that a sign and trade would make sense is if Kyle Lowry would be willing to sign just for the sake of giving the Raptors the benefit of getting something back for him leaving at like a medium mid-level contract, right? Because maybe somebody would give away a couple of pieces if the net value of Lowry was like $12-15 million. But I don't think he's going to sign for 12 to 15, because somebody will pay him, like the Knicks, $20 million. And why would the Knicks do a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry when they could just sign him for 20 outright and not have to give anybody up? So I've come to grips with, I don't think it makes sense to bring Lowry back in any capacity, because I don't want him around for $25 million. No, because someone will give him $25 million. He's not going to let us sign and trade him at the mid market. No other team would accept a sign and trade, because they'd have to give away $20 million value player for an aged Kyle Lowry. So the only other solution is pay him that much to keep him around. And that doesn't make sense.
Well, I believe there's question marks, or there's little loopholes and things you can fool around with the cap in terms of sign and trades. And I agree with all your takes in terms of it doesn't make sense that if a team has cap space, that they're going to want to do a sign and trade unless Lowry is adamant that get my Raptors something in return, right? The Miami Heat, they have cap space. The New York Knicks, as you mentioned, they have cap space. Maybe he says to them, if you don't give back Tyler Hero, I'm going to the Sixers or something like that. But I don't know. We won't hold our breath because that's a very rare situation. I know with Malcolm Brogdon, I believe it was, he said when he left the Bucks, he wanted to give compensation back, or maybe it was just in good faith from the Indiana Pacers to send a couple first-round picks back to Milwaukee in that sign and trade. So it's not unheard of. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I lean to agree with you that no one's going to give the Raptors any assets, especially ones worthwhile, just out of good-heartedness and good nature. But the other area that I could see a potential sign and trade is just if Lowry wants to go to a team that doesn't have the cap space to sign him. So say Philly, his home, who obviously was in the top two contenders for Kyle Lowry during the trade deadline. They're washed away with cap. They have Ben Simmons on a max, Tobias Harris on a max, Joel Embiid. Their cap situation, Danny Green, I think he might be off the books this year, but
he's up, yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, with those three max guys, they're not giving Kyle Lowry even a mid-level contract without having to give up some players. So I could see them maybe if he's adamant on going to the Sixers, giving up some pieces in return to the Toronto Raptors, but that's one area. We're talking about the Knicks right now. They're a team, as you mentioned, with cap space, so I don't imagine there'd be much coming back in the way of returns for the Raptors. But Ryker, I want to throw this question at you because you said there's really no situation where you'd be comfortable bringing Kyle Lowry back, or you want to see him back. But if the Raptors, say the market just isn't there for Kyle Lowry, which we have seen it be weird for different types of players, especially at older ages, not really get the money that they're expecting. If Lowry could come back on a $15 million contract, you still wouldn't want to re-sign him with the squad?
Yeah, $15 million, you probably would sign him.
Yeah.
But $15 million and still having him in the starting lineup, I would rather pass.
Really? Because I'd argue,
this is a losing team with Kyle Lowry in the starting lineup then.
Yeah, but this is a weird season, and we had health and safety. We're playing in Tampa. There's excuses.
I'm not running
we can
back
retool.
12th seed. We're not running back the 12th seed team. Ben.
Bring back the Tank 2.0 next season. I got the Kazoos playing. I don't know. We haven't played that segment in a while. I'm excited for the draft lottery. We got some exciting videos planned for that. But I tend to agree with you in terms of not wanting to run back the same roster. But Kyle Lowry, Would you say he's a better player than Fred VanVleet right now, just in isolation, regardless of future, regardless of development, because obviously Fred has made jumps every season, but assuming Fred is at the level two, both the guys are at the level they were this year. Who is the better player between Lowry and Fred?
Lowry.
Yeah, you'd still go with Lowry, even if the box score doesn't indicate it, just his ability to facilitate, play make, finish around the rim, and they're both solid defenders. They defend in different ways. Lowry's more of a charge taker, leader, while Fred is just picking pockets left, right, and center. And I think that's a close one too, because they do different things. Lowry's a better finisher, Fred's a better shooter. But I think everyone would agree right now that Lowry's a better player than Trent.
Well, you'll never know unless you give Trent a chance off the starting lineup. But here's the thing, Ben. You can't make these comparisons and weave them into an argument why you would want to keep Lowry into the starting lineup, because you've already paid your money to Fred VanVleet. You've already selected him as your point guard of the future, right? You've already traded away Norman Powell for Gary Trent Jr., assuming that they're going to give Gary Trent Jr. money and re-sign him. They've already made these moves to say that this is the core unit that we want to move forward with. So to just keep running it back when you're hindering the development of the guys that you've already committed to makes no sense, regardless of in a bubble or in a vacuum that Kyle Lowry is still the better player. Long term, you're not going to have Kyle Lowry 1-2 more years maximum, and then it has to be Fred VanVleet. So why postpone that just for the sake of a team that is 12th seed this year?
Yeah, no, and I agree with it. And that's just one area that I was going with. That's to bring up an issue with maybe keeping him off the bench, because if he's still the better player next season, which development, obviously when you're 35, 36, you're regressing, and then when you're 22, as Trent is, and obviously Fred VanVleet's just going up on his prime, he's going to keep improving, right? They might be better, but I think right now Kyle Lowry's still the best out of the three, and if that's still the case next season and you're bringing him off the bench with his history with the team, obviously him being the leader of this squad, it's not going to be like a Goran Dragic situation. It just might get a little bit messy having him off the bench, even if that's the best situation for the team. So, because I've seen a lot of people talk to us in the comment section, seeing it on Twitter, Reddit, through the Instagram DM, say Kyle Lowry's still arguably the best player on this team, right? That's still a contention people make, and that's fair, but you look at the development, the route the Raptors are sort of going forward with, even if that's the case, you don't make all of the other moves that you've made and then sort of keep him around to sort of stifle that development, stifle that lower seed. And even if he could come off the bench as a leader, firstly, he'd need to really accept that role, but you also might be short-selling the Raptors' GOAT, right? The guy that is the best player in franchise history, and I don't know if that's really the way Kyle Lowry wants to end it out. So it might be sort of a lose-lose situation to bring him back. And that's tough because he still might be your best player and he's still probably everyone's fan favorite guy on the squad.
Yeah. And to lose everyone that we've lost in consecutive order now, if we rhyme them off, Kawhi, Danny Green, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, and then Kyle Lowry, it sucks because you're not getting any value back, but it doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. Maybe one more season of Lowry starting with Trent Jr. as the number 2 and Fred VanVleet one more year off the bench, but you just gave him $22 million a year.
And he's been starting. He's been starting for 2 years basically. So,
and anyways, before the dog starts kicking up, we've discussed this one. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I wouldn't hate to go see Kyle Lowry on the Knicks, but I'd rather see him on a more competitive team if he's going to leave for somewhere else.
Dallas? Sign and trade for Stinky Pinky?
No, stay away from him with everything that's been on. And on cue, the dog is going, so I'll sign off. And then I'll let you really close it.
Well, anyways, we have a lot of content, a lot of videos coming up. And just to bring up Porzingis, we just dropped a video on Dallas. Lots of trade stuff going over at Courtside Digest. Obviously, the Raptors news, that's probably going to pick up in a couple weeks, right? Once we inch closer to the juicy draft lottery. A fun live stream will be happening then, seeing who we're going to draft, who we're going to pick up. So stay tuned here. But in the meantime, check us out on Courtside Digest for a lot of cool stuff. And Ryker, I don't know if the dogs keep barking, but we've forgotten to, once again, not plug subscribers. We, subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate it. Subscribe here, subscribe over there. I can't really speak. Subscribe. Lots of S's in that word, but
it would only be subscribers that have made it this far anyways, Ben. So
that's fair. But
We'll
you guys are y'all are the best. Check out the Instagram, the Twitter, TikTok, all that cool stuff. Any last words, Riker?
That's it, Ben. Cheers.